Alright, so this will be my video about what I learned from the Outlaw Josey Wales, which is one of my favorite movies that I've ever seen. I love it. I've seen it 1,000 times. I'll see it 1,000 more. Just one of the best movies I ever seen, and one of my favorite characters ever is Josey Wales. So, if you haven't seen the movie, I suggest you go see it and come back to this video because there's going to be some spoilers, and it's Saturday, and if you got nothing to do, it's a great movie, and I bet you'll enjoy it. And then come back to this video, and so I don't spoil it for you. But anyways, I'll give you a quick synopsis. So it's a western. It takes place, I guess, right after the Civil War, and so Josie Wales is a farmer in Missouri. I'm not sure if he used to fight for the rebels or not, but at this point, he's just a farmer. The movie starts off, he's just plowing his dirt with his son and his horse, and everything's fine. Next thing he knows, see now, right after the Civil War, apparently there were a lot of rebel holdouts. They used to call them bushwhackers. So there were these bands of rebel soldiers who would just kill federal troops whenever they saw them and then disappear into the woods. So they were sending these Kansas redlegs, who were Union federal troops, to go down and hunt the bushwhackers down and kill them. And so they come across now the redlegs, the Union, they fought for the North. They come across Josie Wales' farm. And apparently, these redlegs were doing a lot of nasty things in the South. So they come across Josie Wales' farm and they attack it. Josie Wales tries to defend his family. He gets knocked out. When he wakes up, his farm is burnt to the ground and his wife and his son are dead. And who knows what they were doing with his wife. He's very depressed at this point. He digs graves for them, and he's got nothing no more. His farm is gone, his family is gone, and he's got no reason to live. And he digs up his old pistols, and instead of using them on himself, he teaches himself how to shoot. And at first, he can't shoot for shit. He's trying to shoot a post, not good with the guns, but he gets good quick. And so now he's a fair shot with a pistol. And he's just sitting there, I guess, trying to, a couple of weeks have gone by or whatever. He's just sitting on his land thinking how he's going to get his revenge. He wants his revenge. I understand that. I would too. So he's just sitting there on his land, and a group of the Southern Bushwhackers comes up, run by Bloody Bill Anderson, who was a famous rebel soldier. And so Josie ain't scared of them at all. He don't, he they come up and they get to talking, and they're like, "Well, we see what they did to your farm. We're going for revenge. They did the same to us. You want to come with us?" And Josie's like, "Yeah, I'm coming with you." So they go and they start, you know, doing guerrilla attacks on the federal troops, and that goes on for a while, long time apparently. And then it cuts to a scene where the rebels are all just kind of sitting around a fire, and Fletcher, I don't know what happened to Bloody Bill Anderson, but Fletcher is kind of in charge now, and he's saying like, all all you got to do is ride down to them Union troops, hand over your guns, and they're gonna feed us and let us go home. He's like, I'm done, boys. I don't want to fight no more. He's like, I'm giving up. He's like, they're offering us peace. They're not gonna press charges. He's like, all they want is for us to take an oath not to take up arms against the government, and they want to take our guns, and they're going to let us go. We can go get more guns for hunting or whatever, but he's like, I'm done. So if any of y'all want to come with me, now's the time. And the rebels are all just, they're kind of done fighting. They're like, all right, we'll hand over our guns, we'll make peace, and then we'll be on our way. But Josie, he don't want to make peace. They killed his wife, they killed his kid, they burned his farm to the ground. He don't want peace, and I don't blame him. I would have done the same. I'm gonna take I'm going to take them out until they take me out, and I'm going to take as many of them as I can. I have that vendetta blood in my veins. I wouldn't, you know, my only concern would be revenge if I was Josey, and that's how he feels. So he ain't got nothing to lose. I know the feeling. So um, everyone goes to give up their guns and be fed, except Josey. He's watching through his little scope, and he sees that it looks like an ambush. There's other, federal troops in the background setting up for, an ambush, and he sees it. So he gets up on his horse, and he's gonna run down there and try to warn them. As he's doing that, they shoot down all the rebels. But Josey don't care anyways. He sees an opportunity to take out some federal troops, and he's gonna hop on that opportunity. He sees where the Gatling gun was in the one wagon. He rolls up to it, shoots that guy, gets control of the Gatling gun, and starts wiping out the feds, the federal troops. Um, and then, as it turns out, one of the younger rebels survived. He did get shot, but he was still alive. He's like, Josey, we got to get out of here, man. There's too many of them. Josey's like, you go. I'm going to sit here and take them out till they take me out. And the kid's like, well, Fletcher was in on it. He's with him. And Josey's like, oh, yeah? He's like, all right, well, now I got a new mission. I'm going to hunt down Fletcher. And so Fletcher really was not in on it, actually. He thought he was cutting a deal to bring them in. I don't think Fletcher knew they were going to kill all his troops. But now Fletcher knows that Josey Wales knows that he didn't get killed with the rest of the troops, so they're assuming he's in on it. So now he's got to help the Redlegs track Josey Wales down because Josey Wales is going to track him down and kill him otherwise. So now Fletcher's stuck with the Redlegs, and you can tell he really doesn't want to be there. Like him and Josey were friends, but he's got to help them now because Josey is out to kill him. Anyways, so I don't want to give the whole movie away, but that's the gist of it. From here on now, Josey and the kid are on the run from the Union, and they're trying to get to the Indian territories out west because the Union cannot go into the Indian territories. They are not. The Indians will kill them when they see them. They hate the federal government at this point. And here's something that people should try to realize historically. The rebels were not just racist and wanted slavery. It was about states' rights. They didn't want the southern states to answer to the federal government. They did not want a federal government, which we'd be better off if we didn't have it. If every state had its own government, we'd all be much better off because then if you didn't like your state's government and the direction it was going, you could go to another state with a totally different government. But the position we're in now, we've got this federal government, this big, sloppy, stupid, corrupt government that's in charge of everything. So no matter what state you go to, you're dealing with the same government. Had the rebels won that war, every state would have its own government. It would almost be like a separate country, except they'd all be allied together and, you know, on the world stage. But we would have 50 different governments right now instead of one big, corrupt, stupid, shitty one. I mean, that was their purpose. So the reason that they teach us it's all about slavery and this and that, they want you to think like, oh, well, the South was racist. That's the rebels were racist. They want you to associate rebelling and overthrowing the government with racism. They want you to think like, oh, we can't go against the government. That'd be racist. That'd be wrong. We'd be wrong. It's like they've got us so brainwashed. And here's the thing: slavery didn't go anywhere. The difference is now everyone is a slave, and they've got you blaming yourself for it. The reality is, a very teeny tiny percentage of the population owned slaves. The South was poor. Nobody owned slaves. A couple of people did. I mean, it's the same people who owned the slaves back then own them now. I'll just leave it at that. Look into it. Go on my Patreon if you want details. But anyways, so it wasn't about that. That's not what the Civil War was about. And the reason they've taught us that that's what it was about is because they want you to think that the government is the good guy. And here's another thing. So if you could go back in time and ask the Comanches, ask the Sioux Indians, the Lakota, the Cheyenne, the Apaches, if you could ask them who they hate more, the Union or the rebels, they would tell you the Union because it was the it was the federal government, the Union, who wiped out all the Indians. It was not the rebels. If you ask them who you hate more, the blue coats or the gray coats, they're going to say the blue coats. The gray coats never did nothing to us. So if you think it was just all about racism and the gray and the rebels were racist, you're wrong. It wasn't about that. So now that that's out of the way, anyways, at this point, Josey and the kid are on the run, but Josey wants Fletcher. He wants to kill Fletcher. He feels like Fletcher double crossed them. So at this point in the movie, you learn a lot about tracking, counter tracking, and avoiding trackers and things like that. Very practical knowledge. You literally learn about these things by watching this movie. One of my favorite things about it, you learn a lot of MacGyver type things I've used in reality. Here's an example: the kid was shot, so he can't really digest food. His body is weak. So Josie gives him some beef jerky. He says, chew on the beef jerky, swallow the juice, and then spit out the beef jerky. You don't want to make you don't want to waste energy digesting the food, but drinking the juice is going to give you nutrients and keep you on your feet. I've used that tactic when I was homeless and sick and I couldn't keep any food down. I bought some beef jerky, I chewed it, I swallowed the juice, I spit it out. I couldn't hold nothing down. I could hold the beef jerky juice down. It kept me on my feet. I was sick, carrying everything I owned. Winter, New York City. I needed nutrients in my body. I needed strength. So it works. I used that tactic. I learned it from Josie Wales. So there's a there's one major lesson I learned from the movie. Now another here's an example of just like Josie Wales is not just good at fighting and stuff like that. He also is very smart and very clever, and he uses these clever tactics to outsmart the Union chasing him. He doubles back and makes false trails and brilliant shit. At one point, I don't know if they're crossing the Missouri River or the Mississippi River, some big river, and they pay a ferry to get across. Now, the way the ferry works is there's a rope ran across the river, and the ferry is attached to the rope. It's just a platform of wood. Everyone gets on it with their horses, and then the guys who run the ferry pull on the rope and get the ferry across the river. This way, the current doesn't pull them downstream. So Josie and the kid pay to get across the ferry. Once they get to the other side of the river, the Union troops show up, and the kid's like, "Damn, Josie, we got to get to hauling ass because they're right there. They're gonna be across the river within like a half hour." And Josie's like, "Nah, if we just run now, they're just gonna track us down within the next day or two." And the kid's like, "Well, what are we gonna do?" Josie's like, "Just wait." Josie sits under a tree and takes a nap. And you're like, well, what the hell is he gonna do? And as they all get loaded up on the ferry, the kid's like, Josie, they're loaded up on the ferry, they're coming. Josie gets up from his nap, goes, gets his sniper rifle off his horse, got this long scope, and the people on the Union troops on the ferry are like, he thinks he's going to snipe us off one by one, but not, one of us is going to get him before he gets us all. There's like 10 of them. And so you think this is what Josie's plan is, but he's just sitting there waiting with his rifle, watching them. Once they get halfway across the river, instead of shooting them, he shoots the rope. So now they can't get across the river. They just get pulled downstream. So, you know, he's using clever tricks like that throughout the whole movie. So I'm not going to give away the whole movie, but that's, you know, another major lesson there is use your brain. It's not all about brute force. You know, you can outsmart people, and you can use things to your advantage, like whatever the environment presents you with, like a ferry. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you ever read The Art of War from Sun Tzu, he gives the same advice: use the environment to your advantage. You know what I'm saying? So there's another great lesson. Now, at this point, um, I don't want to give away too much, but Josey ends up sneaking up on this Cherokee Indian. He goes up to the Indian, sneaks up behind him, puts his gun to the guy's head, and he just didn't want to get ambushed by him. And the Indian's like, God damn. And Josey's like, I thought Indians were hard to sneak up on. And the Cherokee's like, yeah, we used to be, but now we're civilized. He's like, they call us the civilized tribe because we made peace with the bluecoats, but it cost us our edge. He's like, that's why you were able to sneak up on me because we're soft now, which I thought was interesting. But anyways, the Cherokee ends up joining up with Josey Wales. So as he's traveling, Josey's trying to get to the Indian territories. On his way there, he's building up his own little crew of other misfits that he runs into. You know, it it's just a great movie. And then at one point, um, he stops in Texas to get some supplies, and someone recognizes him as Josey Wales, and there's like four Union troops sitting right there, and Josey's got his hands full of supplies, and someone said, "That's Josey Wales," and the Union troops are just sitting there looking at him. They don't know what to do, and Josey's like, "Well, are you boys gonna try to kill me or what?" And so they all reach for their guns, and Josey takes them out, and the Indian helps him. And around the fire that night, the Indian's like, "Josey, how did you know who to go for first?" And Josey's like, "Well, most of them were scared, but the one on the left, he had he had the eyes of a killer." He's like, "That's why I went for him first, and then I just went down the line." And the Indian's like, "What about the one on the right?" And Josey's like, "I knew you were over there. I didn't even think about him." So, you know. And another thing, like, the whole time Josey's just using clever tactics. You know what I mean? So, and then later on in the movie, there's a wagon train full of, you know, people getting attacked, and you gotta see the movie. But anyways, Josey decides to save the wagon train full of people because he doesn't want them to just get all raped and killed or whatever. So he approaches from he keeps the sun behind him because he wants the sun in their eyes during this shootout. So Josey's always being smart about everything. So when you got the sun behind you, you can see crystal clear. When people are looking directly at the sun, it's hard to see. So Josey takes out the whole band of them and saves the pioneers. And so he decides to, on his way to the Indian territories, they're going to escort these pioneers to their little ranch they're trying to get to. Anyways, they get there, and I actually took notes on this, see if I'm missing anything. So, it looks like I've pretty much been getting all the points I wanted to get. But so at this point, they do get to the ranch. But here's the thing: it's in Comanche territory, and the Comanches do not like most white people at this point. So the Comanches kidnap two of the pioneers or whatever they had with them. So Josey's like, all right, it's not looking good. They're probably gonna attack us at some point. So he shows them how to defend their little ranch building. And at this point, he gives them this speech, which is great. I've remembered this speech at times in my life where I needed a little motivation to toughen up. So Josey says, now when things get bad and it looks like you're not going to make it, you got to get mean. I mean, plumb mad dog mean. Because if you lose your head and you give up, you neither live nor win, and that's just the way it is. And that speech is something I've carried with me ever since seeing the movie, because there's been times in my life where I was dealing with nasty people and I had to get mean and I had to fight like an animal or die or have my things stolen. Or the point is, sometimes you got to be mean. So um, the next morning, after Josey tells them how to defend this ranch, he wakes up real early and he leaves. And the old lady is like, she goes to the Cherokee Indian, Lomwadi is his name. She's like, where's he going? And Lomwadi says, the Indian, the Cherokee says, he's going to face the Comanches. And she's like, why is he going to do that? We're just going to defend the ranch. And the Comanches, or the Cherokee who's with him, he's like, he knows that the best he can do for us is on horseback. Inside the ranch, he's just another gun shooting out the window. Out on horseback, he's good at fighting that way, so he's going to go and take out as many Comanches as he can. And she's like, what? How's he going to do that and make it back here? And the Indian's like, he's not coming back. He's going to take out as many of them as he can till they take him out. And she's like, what the fuck, you know? But here's the thing. If you got people like that on your team, you're going to be hard to beat. That's just, you know, people think like, you know, how do you think the North Vietnamese won in Vietnam? It's because they were more determined to win. It's that simple. They were willing to give them, you know, they were willing to lose everything for the cause. So when you got people like that on your team, it's hard to lose. So, anyways, Jos- Josie gets to the Comanche camp, and they see him riding up, and they all get up on their horses and grab their guns, and they're figuring they're about to just slaughter him. But he rolls up, and he's like, "Are you Ten Bears, the chief of the Comanches?" And I wrote this whole speech down because there's so many good lines. And the Comanche chief is like, "Yeah, I'm Ten Bears." And Josie's like, "Well, I'm Josie Wales." And so the Comanche goes, "You are the Gray Rider who would not make peace with the Bluecoats. You may go in peace." And Josie says, "I reckon not." He's like, "I ain't got nowhere to go." And then the Comanches, the Ten Bears says, "Then you will die." Josie says, "I came here to die with you or live with you. Dying ain't so hard for men like you and me. It's living that's hard. When everything you've ever cared about has been butchered and raped, it's living that's hard." I There's been times in my life where I felt the same way. It's like death. That's easy. Life is hard, you know? And so Josie says, governments don't live together, people live together. With governments, you don't always get a fair word or a fair fight. Well, I've come here to give you either one or get either one from you. So Josie's basically saying, if you want war, give me a fair fight. That's all I ask. You know? How can you argue with that? Um, so Josie says, with the governments, you don't always get a fair word or a fair fight. Well, I've come here to give you either one or get either one from you. I came here like this so you'll know my word of death is true, and that my word of life is then true. The bear lives here, the wolf, the antelope, the Comanche, and so will we. We'll only hunt what we need to live on, same as the Comanche does. And every spring, when the grass turns green and the Comanche moves north, you can rest here in peace, butcher some of our cattle, and jerk beef for the journey. The sign of the Comanche will be on our lodge. That's my word of life. Ten Bears says, and your word of death? Josie says, here in my pistols and there in your rifles. I'm here for either one. The Comanche says, these things you say we will have, we already have. Josie says, that's true. I'm not promising you nothing extra. I'm just giving you life, and you're giving me life. And I'm saying that men can live together without butchering one another. And then Ten Bears says, it's said that governments are chiefed by the double tongues. There is iron in your words of death for all Comanche to see, and so there is iron in your words of life. No signed paper can hold the iron. It must come from men. The words of Ten Bears carries the same iron of life and death. It is good that warriors such as we meet in the struggle of life or death. It shall be life. So Josey makes peace with the Comanches. They give him the two hostages back and they send him on his way. But I thought that was such a great speech because, you know, we're taught that we stole all the land from the Indians. That's not true. The government did that. We didn't do that. We would have been at peace with them eventually, you know. Maybe, maybe not. But here's the thing: it's not. It. The government is responsible for all this shit that they blame on us. But you know what I'm saying? So, um, let's see if there was something I wanted to elaborate on there. Oh yeah, he's saying there's iron in your words, meaning he's speaking truth. His words are powerful. The government does not speak truth. Their words mean nothing. Their words are air. It's wind. It's they speak out of both sides of their mouth. They tell you what you want to hear. You can't what they say does not matter, and it's the same now. So don't be like the double-tongued governments and speak weak words that float away on the breeze. Speak words of iron. Speak the truth. So, anyways, I guess that's the end of this video. Ended up being 26 minutes. Well, whatever. It is what it is. So, I appreciate every single one of you. If you got any movies you want me to do, put it in the comments or whatever. And I guess that's about it. Next YouTube video on my other channel will probably go up tomorrow, I guess. But um, yeah, appreciate every single one of you, and I'll see you on the next one.